Hello, friends, and welcome to Skipping the Mouse with your host, me, Breck Roll. All right, it's my last day in California. That's right, I'm going back to Texas tomorrow. It's been kind of a busy day today. We've got a lot of things accomplished. As you can see, this place is kind of a disaster right now. A lot of stuff that needs to be done here, but we have gotten to the point where we got basically everything in here, and now it's just a matter of kind of putting it all together and turning it into an apartment for my mom. So that was the big deal. The big thing to do today was to get kind of the cable and the internet going. That was a little bit of a challenge. As I mentioned yesterday, there was a bit of a problem getting that all going, and at one point the cable guy had been here long enough, and he had other customers he had to service, and so he basically left the cable modem downloading the latest version of software. And since we were going to leave and not spend the night here anyway, it wasn't really that big of a deal. We just kind of all agreed that we'd come back today and finish up the job. Well, another guy came by this morning to deal with the issue, and there were still problems. There's two TVs that have to be hooked up, one in my mom's TV room and one out here in the living room, and then we also had to get the internet going. And for the most part, that should have been really easy, because the cable boxes for both of the TVs, both the one in my mom's TV room and for the one in the living room, we just brought those over from the house in Garden Grove. But we wanted a new cable modem and a new router because there had been problems with the old one. And what ended up happening is, once we got over here, I got in here this morning and looked at things. Basically, the problem was the TV wasn't working in my mom's TV room. The TV was working out here in the living room, but even after downloading the latest version of the software from Spectrum, the modem still didn't work. So when the guy came here this morning to deal with it, he had a lot of issues to deal with. And basically, he ended up calling into tech support a few times. And the amazing thing is, the service guys, they don't have an inside line. They call the same tech support line that you and I would. And so they get the same, "I'm sorry, we're experiencing a higher than average call volume right now. Please wait for 10 or 15 or 20 minutes while we get to the next available operator." That really kind of blew me away. You'd think that the tech people, that they'd understand that the importance of getting to the tech people when they're out on the job would increase their workload. You get to them quick, and you'd think there'd be a separate customer service line to deal with them. Nope, they go through the same nonsense that we do. So the guy ended up calling somebody, got the, "I'm sorry, we're experiencing higher than normal call volume," call that you normally get, that normally every one of us would get. And he ended up waiting for 10, 15, 20 minutes, and eventually got to somebody who basically said that there was nothing that he could do for them right now, because apparently, according to Spectrum policy, if they don't resolve the issue in the same day that the call was made, and you have to go, and the tech comes out and doesn't resolve the issue, and someone has to come out the next day, you have to get a supervisor involved in order to deal with the issue. And so the guy just said, "Yeah, nuts to that," and he ended up calling in again, waiting another 15, 20, 30 minutes to get on the line with somebody, and then finally got some guy there who had a little bit higher of a work ethic, and basically just issued a command from the front office to the cable boxes, and all of a sudden everything started working again. So I don't know. You'd think that, like I said, they would have a little bit more efficient of a process for dealing with issues when they're sending their own techs out into the field, but apparently Spectrum doesn't. But everything's working now really well, and we're good to go on that. And I spent about 3 hours here dealing with that today, and finally let the guy go. And then I had to go back home and basically take my mom. She had a doctor's appointment she had to go to today. And then we went to visit my father because it turns out the doctor's office is just literally a couple blocks away from the hospital. And so we went and visited my father, and he's still a little bit out of it. He was still on the respirator, but actually he was breathing on his own today, which was a good thing. But like I said, he was still really heavily sedated. And so at one point, his pastor came in, and it was just his pastor and I there for a while, and we went in and visited him, and the pastor just basically, raised his voice and, spoke, as pastors can do. They can project very well, and just said, Dave, hey, this is your pastor, and we're here, and we're going to pray for you. And that actually got my father to wake up a little bit, and his eyes flickered a little bit, and he was moving his hands around a little bit. And the pastor prayed over him for a couple minutes, and it was clear that my father was aware of what was going on with that. And so that was really good. And then shortly after that, my mom and my sister arrived, and we spent a little time with him. And we were able also to get him to react a little bit. He's still really out of it, but the beauty is, that was kind of by plan. They wanted to have him on a respirator for 24 to 36 hours, just because they wanted to give his heart and his lungs a rest and allow them as much chance to heal as possible. But about 2 hours before I arrived today, they actually took him off the respirator and allowed him to start breathing on his own. And so when I arrived there, like I said, he'd been breathing on his own for a couple hours, and they turned off the anesthetic. So gradually over the next, 12 to 24 hours, he should kind of begin regaining consciousness and should be back to normal. So my mom and my sister are going to go visit him tomorrow, and hopefully he'll be back to somewhat his old self. Now, he hasn't been taking some of the medicines that are supposed to kind of keep the ammonia levels under control. So he may be a little bit out of it for the first day or so until they get his ammonia levels back under control again. But he is definitely on the mend, and he was definitely reacting to us today when we went and visited him. So very, very, very grateful that that's happening. I ask you to continue the prayers and thoughts for him, because they mean so much to him, and they mean so much to the rest of our family. So please keep those going. Afterwards, we came over here and basically did some unpacking in the apartment and got all the dishes out and got a bunch of stuff unpacked. And now we're kind of hitting the end of the day. Actually, it was kind of interesting. We found out yesterday by talking to one of the other residents here that there's a trash pickup service here. Actually, the resident we talked to referred to them as the trash Faries. And apparently they come in every night, and if you put your trash out in front of the door, they'll just pick it up and take it away for the night. Well, we were unpacking, and we had a lot of packing material, and that's still out in front of the door. It actually looks like a dumpster out in front of the apartment right now. And about 30 minutes or so ago, I went over and went downstairs with the plans of trying to figure out where the dumpster was, so that I could maybe, do our part. I didn't feel comfortable leaving all that stuff in front of the apartment for the trash Faries to pick up, and I wanted to bring it down. But when I talked to them about it, they said, well, the problem is the dumpster we have is kind of behind a locked door, so you really can't bring it down there on your own. And so what they said is, well, it's coming up on 10 o'clock. In fact, it's about 10:30 right now. And they said, that's when the trash Faries arrive. I don't know what they're actually called, but that's what someone else called them, so I'm going to refer to them as the trash Faries. That's when the trash Faries arrive to pick up the trash. And they said they'd come directly up to my apartment and to my mom's apartment, and I would then be able to help them bring that stuff down. Like I said, I felt a little guilty, because if you looked out in front of the apartment, there's like 10 or 12 large boxes, and they're all filled with like packing material. And I know they're really just there to pick up like trash bags and stuff like that, not to be picking up tons and tons and tons of stuff where you have to make half a dozen trips down to the dumpster just for one unit. So I'm still kind of waiting for them to show up. And other than that, I'm probably going to, like I said, I'm going to go back to Texas tomorrow. And that day kind of starts early. I think what I'm going to have to do, since we actually have two vehicles down here at the apartment, I think I'm going to take one of them back to my parents' house and then have the Uber pick me up there. So anyway, I think that's all that I have to talk about today. Thank you as always for watching, and I will see you next time on Escaping the Mouse. Good night.